Hello, brothers and sisters. Today we're looking at Proverbs 26. I'm going to draw our attention to verse 17. Proverbs 26:17 says, "Whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like taking a passing dog by its ear." That's a strange verse, isn't it? This idea of seeing a dog presumably is stray and wild and kind of without an owner or any such thing, and grabbing that strange or stray dog by the ear. Why would you pull a dog by the ear? You've got to have a lot of courage to do something like that, especially what if that dog's big? What if the dog's got a big mouth, some vicious teeth, maybe even rabies or something, But the proverb is doing this almost humorous but also strange illustration to talk about the folly or the foolishness of getting involved and invested and in the middle of a fight, argument, or quarrel that does not concern you or I. So the proverb basically just says this: stop being overly nosy and mind your own business, and don't invest yourself or involve yourself in this dispute, this argument, this discrepancy, because it has nothing to do with you. So I think we've all said that before. This is an A and B conversation. You can see yourself out of it. I'm sure we've come up with all sorts of little rhymes with it. But really, that's what the proverb is saying. It's saying there are some arguments, there are some disputes, there are some discrepancies and disagreements that is between one person and another, or between, those of a particular family, or a boss-employee relationship, or a member to member, or a member to pastor, that doesn't concern everyone else. Well, friends, think about what the opposite then is. What happens when we do overly involve ourselves, overly invest ourselves, constantly nosily prying into other people's business, particularly arguments and disputes that really have nothing to do with us? What happens if we step into those when we shouldn't? Well, the proverb is at least provoking us with the idea. It's like grabbing a stray dog. You don't know what he's going to do. That dog may come back and bite you. That dog may attack you. Certainly going and grabbing this dog's ear is going to take you away from doing what you should be doing. But the point here is, little good comes when we stick our noses in situations we have no business sticking our noses in. Now, one of the questions you might ask is, well, Blake, what about with disputes that eventually are around unrepentant sin? Doesn't Jesus say in Matthew 18:15, if your brother sins, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone, and if he's heard you, you've won your brother? That's right. But it says in verse 16, but if he doesn't listen, if he doesn't receive, if he doesn't respond to godly correction, instruction, warning, or rebuke, then you are to involve a larger circle. And so when we're dealing in the realm of church discipline, unrepentant sin, in the life of the church, I still tend to, if there is a dispute between two members, whether it's a disagreement over, a decision that was made, feelings that were hurt, hidden expectations, jealousy, whatever it may be, I'm still going to encourage two people to work it out before you get involved, an elder involved or other members involved. That's just kind of a general rule of thumb. You want to keep that circle as small as possible. But then, of course, if there is unrepentant sin and it's going to touch the life of that congregation and its witness and also that person's profession of faith, then prudentially, you do have to include others. But really, in the everyday run-of-the-mill kind of stuff, this is the kind of things that we have to teach our children about. As your children get older, they get curious. And children listen a lot more than we're even giving them credit for. And how many times as parents have we heard our kids get really upset or real jealous when they hear us talking to one of our children and they don't like what they hear, or they say that's not fair, or well, he did this to me or she did this to me, and we say this, it's none of your business. I'm not speaking with you. Well, the same thing happens to us even as adults. And so, brothers and sisters, think about that today. I mean, again, it's very kind of straightforward, somewhat common sense, but it's proverbial wisdom here. We need to be very careful and cautious about involving ourselves with disputes and discrepancies that are not at the level of church discipline. They are not touching the life of our church or the witness of a congregation, and they're not necessarily calling someone's profession of faith into question. But there might just be everyday situations that we should not involve ourselves in. And I think one of the dangers of our social media age is this idea of trolling, stalking people on the internet and reading in between the lines of everything they text or post or tweet or whatever. And then, jumping into this argument and fighting when that dispute had nothing to do with us. And so again, I just think we all should pray for wisdom, not to be idlers who are going from house to house, conversation to conversation, cubicle to cubicle, text to text, being busybodies, gossips, getting involved and getting invested and meddling in disputes, quarrels, and arguments that no one has asked us or invited us into, and really at the end of the day does not concern us whatsoever. And so parents, if you've got adult children, that means you need to let them work things out. That means that you do not need to invest and involve yourself into little disputes between their peers and even their employers. They need to work that out themselves. To overly invest yourself in them is going to neuter and weaken and hurt your son or daughter from basically becoming the man or woman you've called them to be, or God's called them to be. And then I think, at the end of the day, all of us as just Christians, we should be very, very, very discerning on what disputes, arguments, or discrepancies we should involve ourselves in, and which are ones that we should refrain from, knowing that it's not going to reap very good fruit from it. So what does that look like for you today? Pray for God to give you discernment when to back out and not grab that dog by the ears. God bless.